This episode coming up with Josh Crumbaugh. I am super excited. It is a little bit out of my lane. We're in the cyberspace, the hacking space, and those of you know this is insurance and insurtech community podcast. But with the growth, the hyper growth of cybersecurity these days, we need to ask ourselves why. How did it go from $1 billion to $5 billion industry, and then now it's supposed to go to $20 billion industry? It's the hacking, the data breach that's really fueling the growth of cybersecurity and also cyber insurance, right? So Josh is going to come on and you can hear a little bit about his background. Super cool, super knowledgeable, but most importantly, he is very transparent and very engaging. So I had a lot of fun shooting this episode, and I hope you enjoy. And also, I hope this episode brings engagement to Josh and his business. And I think they run a really, really cool business. So enjoy this episode with Josh Crumbaugh. Hello, welcome everyone to this episode of Founder's Journey. And today we have a special guest for you, Josh Crumbaugh. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So for this of our audience who doesn't know this, but I just met Josh personally maybe 10 minutes ago, and we're kind of catching up about who we are, what we do. And you are a very impressive individual. I'm sitting here looking on your LinkedIn, all the things you have achieved. And now you have started a new company called PhishFirewall. We love to interview founders in the insurance space, insurtech space, and the fintech space. Insurtech, insurance, and fintech make up the majority of our audience. So, those of us outside looking at starting companies, I think this is going to be an amazing episode that you're going to bring them the insights of what you personally went through in your journeys, the ups and downs, the highs and lows. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to you and just allow you to talk about your journey and what led you to where you are today, the cyber world, the insurance world, and just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I found my passion really when I found ethical hacking. I had done just enough to almost get myself into trouble back when I was in high school, and which led me to, believe it or not, a career in marketing. And I spent 10 years in marketing, did really well, but was never really happy. One day I was asked to hack this Excel spreadsheet from Bank of America. It was password protected, and this company that I worked for wanted to get into it. And so I go and I discover at the time penetration testing. About 2 weeks later, I quit my job and never really looked back, and went into ethical hacking. A few months after that, found my first job. About a year after that, ended up getting on with one of the top red teams in the country. From there, within 6 months, I was running the team, and that's just sort of how my career went. Ethical hacking, though, has been my passion. I got to do things like quite literally break into Fortune 500 companies in the middle of the night, talk my way into bank vaults, pull off Ocean's 11 style heists in the middle of the day. All of this I got paid to do, to test security. And so, yeah, one of the most amazing jobs in the world, complete adrenaline rush. But my issue with it was that we found the same problems everywhere, every single time, and it was the human element. And so I really set out to, and the reason I founded PhishFirewall was that I wanted a better solution, a better way of addressing the human element. Every solution out there, they check the boxes for compliance, but they did not change culture. They did not change the human. And then all of a sudden, all these dissertations and studies started coming out that said, hey, security awareness training doesn't work. And so, I founded PhishFirewall so that we would have a better way to train our people about common cyber attacks to prevent them from making those mistakes that led to me being able to, for example, tailgate into one of the largest financial institutions in the country. I was able to tailgate in off the same guy 4 years in a row. And I wanted to make sure that we had something that could address that. So a little bit about me and my background, and sort of what led me here and caused me to found this company. Interestingly enough, when I did first found the company, I'd been offered a position with the New York Stock Exchange, sort of head up their application security, and decided I didn't want to move to Atlanta. I know it's not New York like you'd expect. Anyway, decided I didn't want to move to Atlanta at the time, and so that's part of what drove me to ask the questions that led to me starting the company. So
I'm just going to read what is public there on your LinkedIn profile. And starting 2000, Director of Internal Internet Marketing, and then you went to Director of Marketing, President JCMD, and then VP of Sales and Marketing, founder of 365 Cube, Director of Marketing at Platinum Mortgage, and then you pivot. Like, is this all self-taught? Like the skill set that you learned in the hacking world, or did you always have those skill set, but you just have a daytime job of the marketing arm?
yeah, it was really more I had the skill set. I taught myself to program and code back in high school. I've sort of, when I was born and my age, caused me to really be on the bleeding edge of technology in areas where traditionally, when I was learning them, there was no good way to learn them. When I was trying to get into development, they were still teaching COBOL, and they needed to be teaching JavaScript, and they needed to be teaching Python or at least C sharp. But I guess I'm dating myself a little bit. At least they weren't using punch cards, but it wasn't very relevant. And so yeah, so much of it was self-taught, and particularly around the cybersecurity and the ethical hacking. All of the resources that were available online, early 2000s, late 99 or late 90s, was entirely from the black hat hacker's perspective, and it was very much in the underground. So it wasn't until later that the more legitimate ethical hacking version of these things sort of came out and became more mainstream.
So I'm still reading your profile, and the pivot came in 2012, senior cybersecurity analysis. And then it gets interesting. Lead penetration tester, master social engineer rock star. It was something like that. I can't remember titles. And then the title gets even better. Hacking God or something like that. I can't remember titles.
Chief hacker. Yeah.
For Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and then chief hacker and CEO of PeopleSec, and then Cigna senior security engineer, and then senior penetration tester for U.S. Security Exchange Commissions, and then senior penetration tester for Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. You've seen the back door of literally all these federal agencies. And I just keep on thinking like all these movies I have seen over the years, right? There's so many movies of bad guys trying to hack U.S. government, trying to hack our federal government's security systems and deposits, whether going from the front door or going from the back door or going through the firewalls. Like you're like the guy on the other side of these movies trying to stop these bad guys, right? So wow.
Well, but more than often, I was the guy being the bad guy. So my job was mostly in a red team. Red team is the offensive side, the people that get paid to think like the criminals. Whether good or a bad thing, I was always really good at thinking like the criminals, but always had that very strong moral boundary, which made me really good at ethical hacking and red teaming. But it really does take a different mindset, because a hacker looks at things differently. And the example I like to use are those auto mag locks on every major corporate office building in the world. Well, no one notices that they unlock when they leave automatically, and that they don't have to press a button or swipe to get out. They just walk out and leave. Well, the hacker notices that. The hacker notices the slit in the door where they can slip an envelope, and they can trigger that auto unlock sensor so it thinks somebody's leaving and they can walk in. So it's really it's a different mindset. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And, my mind's spinning so fast right now. Of course, I'm on my third cup of coffee, but at the same time, like, yeah. So at the same time, like, I come from the background of the insurance industry, and what insurance industry have is insurance carriers and software vendors that work with insurance carriers. But what they do both hold is just data of Americans, right? Date of birth, social, payments, credit card, e-check, routing account number, and that's just like the first tier of the information they hold. If anybody, like everyone talk about like banks are like the people that hold people's data. Insurance holds so much people's data.
They do.
And they're very vulnerable because we have so many insurance carriers, like so many, and it's all fragmented, and they have legacy systems, and they're trying to implement to the next wave of systems through Duck Creek, Guidewire of the world. Who are your clients? I mean, I'm sure like some of these insurance carriers got to be hiring your company, and please go ahead, put the plug in for your company and everything you guys do, because I'm sure that a lot of them are asking you guys, hey, try to hack us, test us out, right? Because they want to go through a regular hack through you guys versus a real world hack through somewhere in Eastern Europe or Pakistan, someone demanding like $50 million in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, so we work with a ton of underwriters, a few brokers, and quite a few government financial agencies as well. So we do, sort of run that gauntlet of who we work for. I've definitely seen sort of behind the scenes in the insurance business, that's for sure. I will say it's funny that you mentioned the data, because one of the most common issues in the insurance space that I've seen that seems to be true across the board for almost everybody is they have the same issues with their developers writing insecure code that tends to lead to the accessibility of more data than somebody should be able to have. And it's really that they don't have access controls on everything. So imagine a page where you logged in to get to that page. The developer says, well, they had to log in to get to this page in the first place. Why do I need to protect this function that pulls data within the page? The hacker says, oh, look at this function. It's unprotected. Let me go look at all the data for every user in their database.
So there's an industry called the cyber insurance industry, right?
Yeah.
Today, that industry is $5 billion, which is already thousands times over growth in the last 5 years. And I read an article that says that industry in the next 4 or 5 years is going to be $20 billion industry.
I would think
And
so.
That's just on premiums, right? Like that's $20 billion on insurance premium of cyber insurance world. And we don't even know like what the damage is annually of pays and losses, right? So there's a company called Security Scorecard, and I think their business model is rating agency, right? Rating a company, let's just call it Huntsville Accounting Services, Huntsville insurance agency, and then they put a scorecard around your website, around your systems, and then give a rating. Like, do you guys work with rating agency as well, or how does it integrate at all?
I mean, the data certainly can. We do. We're in the security scorecard sort of partner marketplace. Although I do got to say, I was sort of cussing about them this morning. I will filter it, but they see some of our phishing infrastructure once in a while, and we'll go and we'll submit 1,000 tickets to get it whitelisted, and we'll have a great grade, and then they'll go run whatever they run over there again, and our grade will immediately drop, and we'll have to go whitelist them again. So it's funny that you bring them up today, because I was just sort of complaining about them, but I do love their approach, love what they do, and I think if you don't have a weird, unique business practice like us that has this massive infrastructure, it's a great tool. But yeah, no, it's one of the interesting things about the cyber liability insurance business is that, number one, they're very particular about who they're writing policies to now. So if you don't have basics like security awareness training, which is one of the core things that PhishFirewall does, it's oversimplifying it, but they provide that training for your users. But if you don't have that training, you don't have multi-factor, and you don't have an endpoint detection and response tool, they won't even write that insurance policy. And I expect it to continue to get worse, where they have more and more sort of core controls. The other thing is that all of the hackers, the first thing they go after and they look for when they break in is that cyber liability insurance policy, because it'll tell them what the most critical systems are, and so they'll use that cyber liability insurance policy to learn where to target their ransomware attacks, and B, to determine how much that person is willing to pay. And so they will actually base their ransom on the insurance policy. So it's amazing, sort of some of the crazy stuff that we see.
That is smart and scary at the same time, because that literally they know the exact right pressure to apply.
Yeah, where to apply the pressure to get the most impact. And that's the reason so many pay. The issue is, though, that sometimes we can't pay. And I think there's too many executives and key decision makers or key stakeholders that don't understand that, particularly as an EU or an American company, you are not allowed to support terrorist organizations. And so some of these ransomware groups are designated as terrorist organizations. And if you were to pay them, that becomes a crime in and of itself. And so there's the other issue that we run into sometimes, is that if they're a terrorist organization, you just simply can't pay, even if you wanted to pay the ransom.
So hypothetically, we are in a geopolitical tension world these days, right? Like there's so many geopolitical hotspots. There's 124 hot wars that's going on right now. Most people think just like Middle East or,
Oh, there's a lot going on in Africa right now too.
Yeah. Wow. That is a big list now, I think, about people you cannot pay. So what happens when hypothetically insurance company, I'm just throw randomly like Chubb, they get their whole infrastructure stolen, hijacked? Just curious. Like if they cannot pay the terrorist organization who hijacked their system, what's next?
Well, hopefully you can rebuild. Hopefully you have a recovery point that's less than 24 hours of lost data. But there's companies that have had to use that, what we call bare metal strategy. Sony, when way back when they had their infamous hack, they were like that. I mean, if the hacker gets too embedded in your systems, it can be almost impossible to get rid of them, and you just sort of have to rebuild from scratch, which is what they did. But more often than not, your people have planned for this. They know how to recover from it. They have a recovery point. They have recovery objectives, and they know exactly how much data that is the maximum amount of data that they'll lose. Most companies aim for 24 hours. That is the max amount or max acceptable loss if they had to, restore to a recovery point. That assumes the hackers haven't got into your recoveries, and if they get into your backups, then it's a whole different ball game. But that's part of the reason that security needs to be proactive and not reactive. I see so much of it where it's not going to happen to me attitude. And it's sort of like riding a motorcycle. Everyone, makes that comment. It's not if you're going to wreck, it's when. And it's the same thing with cyber attacks. I mean, even when we, get your people to where almost nobody clicks on Phish, and we're at, fractions of 1% Phish click rate, is we still, when we calculate your risk and your probability of having a breach as a result of a Phish, it's in how many years it would take. It's not that we can, it's never. It's that, hey, we've reduced that, which, you're in insurance, you understand. We've reduced that number from you're likely to have one every 3 years to 400 years now. And that's what we sort of want to work on, is reducing that risk to something that's more acceptable. But that's why we got to be proactive and really, really treat cybersecurity like a serious issue that it is. And as these political tensions or global tensions and crises, sort of heat up, like you're talking about, this only gets worse, and it empowers the hackers to do more.
I have so many questions lining up. I'm trying to slow it down and give it to you one at a time. You on your LinkedIn, in your background, you're speaking at events, right? Like, what are some of the events that you're going to be speaking at coming up? And for those people, like my son, I'm speaking for my son. He's 18 years old, super smart, about to graduate college next spring. He have a passion for the cyber world, for the hacker world, for taking all his certification tests and go through the learning process. What kind of advice you give to people to come into this industry if they want to follow in similar path of what you have done? And what kind of events do they go to network?
First of all, the knowledge is out there. The hacker community invented the whole concept of open source. And so that's part of the reason that I was able to get all this, what might be considered almost forbidden knowledge way back in the late 90s. I was learning this, and oh man, it was great back then. You had these tools like ICQ. And every time you'd be talking or chatting to anybody or doing the peer-to-peer file share, it was literally these computers were networked together and they were wide open, everything. And so, I had the biggest MP3 collection ever back in the day, I'll tell you what. But no one had any security on anything, and it was just the Wild West. But no, that's how I got that data and learned that, and that's how Mitnick learned all of that. Was that since the earliest days of phreaking, which was phone system hacking, where people would play tones that would represent a quarter being deposited or whatever. And so back in the days when you had to pay for long distance, the way that, poor kids like me growing up would get online would be to phreak. And so you would use a payphone, and you would play the tones, and you would connect through a modem, and it would, assume that you had paid. And so there were different things like that could be done to gain access or, make long distance or international calls without ever having to pay for them. And that was sort of where that all started. And then as the internet progressed, they're dumping all of that knowledge online. And then that sort of led to the open source movement, where all of these, these really cool tools are open source. In fact, one of the best large language models right now that competes and is on par with GPT, 4.0 and the new Claude and all of those, is one that runs locally on your machine that was built open source. And it's completely open source. And so, it's really interesting watching technology evolve and seeing these open source projects compete on a day-to-day. Sorry, no, I got way off track there.
No, you're good. I love this. This is awesome. I'm gonna take the conversation back a little bit. PhishFirewall, your company, your present company. Tell us the history on that. Thank you for all your support to our channel. Here is a quick word from our sponsor. Please click on the link below in the comment section to sign up for a demo with Track AI.
What if your insurance sales conversations could work harder for you? Meet Track, your AI-powered conversation intelligence partner. Track automatically captures and analyzes every customer interaction, providing instant call summaries, risk analysis, and AI-driven coaching insights. Say goodbye to manual note-taking and hello to more selling time. Track handles the admin work while you handle the revenue. Fully integrated with your favorite platforms. Plus, get custom AI analysis tailored to your unique business needs. Transform your sales team's performance with Track. Visit track.ai today.
Click the link in the description below to schedule a demo with Track today.
One of the things, it was really my breaking point, was the story I told you about earlier, where I tailgated in off the same person 4 years in a row. So tailgating is when I go run into you in the parking lot and get you to open up the door for me to get into a more secure facility. This guy was a smoker. I kept a vape around so I could just go hang out with the smokers. And that was the only reason I had it, was because that was an easy entry point to the most secure organizations still have smokers. And so I would target them. And the criminals do this too. And so I would go and make friends, and I would typically have a couple business cards for whatever pretext that I had. And so I show up as an auditor from one of the big four banks, right? And this person used to work for this same big four bank, and he's talking about all these people that we knew in common, which I didn't know any of them. I just pretended it, which if he had been baiting me to find out if I was for real, he would have found out in a second I was a fraud. But it turns out, he didn't. He wasn't trying to test me, and he just remembered me. And the next year, he's like, "Oh, manual audit. Let me, do you need help getting in? And we get in. He's like, hey, you need me to scan in the elevator? And so not even is he getting me in, but he's getting me up to the executive floors and where I would hang out all day and sort of do my job, even though I wasn't supposed to be there. But yeah, it led me to this breaking point where I'm like, okay, we're doing these tests and we're having basically issuing the same report each year. Nothing's changing. No one's getting better. So I looked at the industry and I said, well, what are we doing about social engineering? And I said, can we use these same tactics, the same psychology that makes our people insecure? Can we use that to make them more secure? And that led me to really start researching behavioral science. In the process, I got an opportunity to collaborate with professors from around the globe to write college coursework on how we build effective security awareness training programs. And the core focus was on behavioral science. How do we apply these known behavioral science principles to cybersecurity? And so one of the things we did was we took all these training videos that would normally be boring and long, and you'd do them once a year. And we broke them down into these, 15 to 45-second videos. And all these 15 to 45-second videos come in once a week, religiously once a week, sometimes twice a week. And what it does is it's sort of like advertising, and it's called space learning theory. But when you can make it bite-sized, easy to understand, and continuous, it actually works, and it starts changing that behavior. And so, yeah, that's one of the core things. We also there's so many cool behavioral science principles that you can use. Another one that we found to apply was called identical elements theory. You know how when you buy a new car, instantly you start seeing that car everywhere? Does that ever happen to you? Yeah. So what's really cool about that is we can use that to make our people more secure. So over 90% of all these ransomware attacks, they start with somebody clicking on something that they shouldn't. So how do we prevent them from clicking on that thing that they shouldn't? Well, what we do is we simulate that, and we make sure that at the moment that mistake is realized, that A, they have that corrective just-in-time training so that they do realize their mistake, and B, we help them understand the red flags through that just-in-time follow-up training. And what's really cool is that by doing that, we implant those red flags as in their subconscious, and then identical elements theory kicks in. And now they start to see that same red flag across other emails and in their text messages and even over the phone. And it makes them more and more secure. And so behavioral science is just a really, really cool thing. And so that technical hacking the applications really led me to, well, how do we hack the human brain to make our people more secure? And so, yeah, we've been able to do it. We built an AI that does exactly that. It gets people out of their own way to help them become more secure. Because really, cybersecurity isn't that difficult or technical or complex. It can be very simple, and when we make it simple for our people, they stop being intimidated by it. But most people, all they know of cyber is what Hollywood shows them. And Hollywood says, you got to be a genius to understand this. And so you get almost a slide response from people, or this auto response from people, that they don't want to learn about cyber. It's too complex. So all you have to do is just, sort of battle that or counteract that by making it more accessible, easier to understand.
I have a flashback of all these Hollywood movies, some hacker trying to hack into something, and John Travolta is pointing a gun in their head. And like, you have to get inside this server in the next 65 seconds, and they start doing the countdown with the gun to their head.
Yeah, he's moving boxes around on a screen. Yeah. I've wished I could hack like that a bunch of times, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's a lot more green text on a black screen than anyone realizes, I'll tell you that.
I think the most interesting one was the MBS from Saudi, how they had the Israeli software called Burkus or something. And then they sent it to Amazon, Jeff Bezos' cell phone. And that was a famous case of the most recent one, that a simple text message, you open up a text message and they take over your phone. I mean, the level of sophistication is just crazy.
Oh, I got one of those yesterday that they tried to take over my phone that way. Still doing some investigation on it to see where it came from or try and track it down. But no, it's it's amazing how sophisticated some of these attacks are getting. We were looking at our website traffic earlier today, and on August 29th, we had 70,000 search impressions on Google for the term Skynet. Because we wrote a blog post about the modern day Skynet and how AI truly is attacking us, but it's phishing us, right? It's not robots that are brutally murdering everybody. No, it's just robots that are brutally phishing everybody and handing over access to the bad guys. But we wrote an article about that. And the reason that happened was because in the movie, it was August 29th, 2024, when Skynet became sentient and became a thing. So that particular day, everyone was searching it on Google. But no, it's funny and anecdotal. But the reality is that our people are getting targeted with highly sophisticated phishing attacks. And one of the ones that concerns me the most is the fake email thread. So, they'll fake a conversation between me and them, and then they'll send that to my head of accounts payable. And in that email, I'll be telling them, hey, send this to this person, and I'll give them their email address. And then they send that to that person in accounts payable. But the problem is I never agreed to buy that. I never told them to send it to my person in accounts payable. It's all fake. It's all created by AI, but then that goes to my person in accounts payable. And because it's a fake message, it's perfect. It goes right through my email filters. It doesn't get caught by any of the security tools, and it looks like it's truly for me because it's just an email thread. You can make that fake email address be anything, and so it's one of the more complex, more terrifying attacks that we're seeing daily hit our people right now.
I'm American. I like to think we have the smartest people on earth. I like to think we have the smartest innovation technology on earth. When you talk about offensive hacking, right? I mean, of course, we have to be on the top 5, top 10 list, right? And IDF guys probably on that list, Mossad. Like, who would you say have top 5 actor around the world have the best capability, offensive capability around the world?
I mean, for sure, the U.S. is right up there. I'd say probably the best. China's right up there. They're very good. Russia took a little bit of a hit. A lot of their talent was in Ukraine so when they attacked Ukraine, they lost a little bit of their hacking talent. And so we've seen them drop off a little bit, only a slight bit. They're still a formidable threat and doing a lot. But it was interesting that they sort of slit their own wrists there by invading Ukraine. But no, I mean, the U.S., we've got some of the best people in the world. I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of them. And we have so many people that do things that we're, not even really allowed to talk about. But of course, I think we've got great offense. We've got great defensive capabilities. But the problem with defense is that the bad guys only have to get it right once. But the good guys, the defenders, they have to be right 100% of the time. And so it makes it very difficult to make sure that we're never having an incident. We're never having a breach. Our people don't ever leave a USB at a hotel somewhere with, sensitive data on it. But the reality is that humans will be humans. And so we see these breaches every day. And, most of the like high profile, we'll say, top secret sensitive data disclosed breaches that I've seen recently have not been insider threats or anything like that. It's been people carelessness, and it continues to be. So I don't know.
Do you guys teach like executives of insurance and Fortune 500 companies about how not to be a target? Because I mean, at the end of the day, their cell phones, their laptop, probably the highest priority list of targets, right?
Yeah, so we've got specific roles for people in sales as well as executives. And the reason is because each different people have different threats. If I'm in sales and I am in on my socials all day, trying to connect with people, trying to work with people, trying to find that deal. If I'm an executive, I'm in my email all day looking, making sure I don't miss anything, making sure my team has the guidance, leadership that they need. I'm in meetings all day. But what that means is that if I'm being targeted, it's going to be very different. And so, we have to have that sort of contextual training where it understands the role and says, okay, you're going to be in social media. Here's the threats. Just be careful while you're doing this. Here's how you do it securely. And so absolutely, yes, we have that training, and that's part of the reason that AI has to be involved in our training. We've got the AI cyber coach that does all the training, but it's not an AI video. Like, I can't do the impression. I was going to try, and it would have been terrible. So I'm glad I didn't. But these AI videos, they're just not there yet. So everything we do is from an actress. It's very much human, but the AI tailors the distribution of that content. So you get the content you need at a time you need it and at a time that you're most likely to engage.
Just for our audience, for a disclaimer, we want to say that this video of Josh and Jeff is actual real Josh and Jeff. It's not an avatar. If somebody watching this 3 years from now and AI advanced with some skill set levels that we are now seeing today. So for fun, right? Your company, what do you look for? What do you look for when you're building a cyber company like yours? Like, what kind of talent do you look for, and where do you find it?
Honestly, I mean, I think as a founder, we're all looking for that exact same talent initially. Good salespeople. I mean, more than the cyber talent and all of that. Honestly, it's all about that hunter to go out there and spread the word, because gone are the days of build a better mousetrap and the whole world will beat down your door. You can build a better mousetrap and you're going to have to beat down the whole world's door to sort of take that to market. So. First and foremost, always sales. Good hunters are hard to find. So, that's one of those things that since day one, I've really been trying to find, cultivate, make sure we keep. But other talent for the side of the work that we're really on is people that understand psychology. Ideally, somebody that has a little bit of a mixed background between marketing and marketing and or advertising and psychology. Because it's marketing and advertising is the offensive, if you will, use of psychology. How do we get people to do things? Whereas psychology is more, why do people do things? We're all in the how do we get people to do things business. And so, we definitely look for that. And then for ethical hackers, we're really looking for applicable certs. So if I'm hiring an ethical hacker, I want to see them having their OSCP, which is it's offensive security certified professional. It doesn't tell me that they can do the job. It tells me that they've got the background at least enough that whatever I tell them to do, they can figure it out. They may be slow. They may still have a lot to learn because that cert doesn't really help you with any of the real world hands-on stuff. But getting it gives you enough background that I can tell you what to do, and I know you're going to be able to figure it out. So I'm really looking more for certs than degrees. There are some really great cyber degrees coming out now, but I'll tell you, they're not mainstream enough yet. So every employer I know, they're really not looking for the degrees. They're looking for the certs. And there's a bunch of them out there like GPEN, OSCP, Certified Ethical Hacker. If you're looking to be more in the administrative, like policy, planning, architecture side of things, CISSP is a really good one. Although you can't fully get that until you have at least 5 years in the industry. But yeah, it's really all about certifications, because certifications tend to move a little bit more quickly than academia, which I know my alma mater was asking me for a donation. I'm like, well, do you have a cybersecurity, course? And they're like, no. And I said, well, call me when you get one. So
that might motivate them to get one.
Well, they said they're still at least 5 years out. And I said, well, okay, all right. You needed it yesterday, not 5 years from now.
That's the thing, like our public school system and our school system in general just move so slow. They need to be moved at a much faster speed where the real world and all the things that where AI is moving at right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we were just meeting with a group that does training for K-12, a nonprofit, government funded, and that was one of the things we were talking about is how can we, get training out to the teachers, get training out to the students at a young age, so that they're entering the workforce more secure. But yeah, it's one of those things where like the teachers that are tasked with training this, they have zero training in it. A lot of them don't even know cybersecurity or tech at all. So it's not even an IT person. They're just taking, the art teacher and saying, hey, you're going to teach cybersecurity. And it's great that we've got schools that are doing that, but we've got to give more resources to those people so that they can, really do it in an intelligent and in a good way that the people can learn. The problem is teachers unfortunately get paid so little, and cybersecurity get paid so much that anytime somebody gets cybersecurity skills, they don't stay a teacher very long. So,
if I'm listening to this podcast, right, and I want to connect with Josh and PhishFirewall, the company, who are your ideal clients? I mean, what is the ideal client that's perfect fit for you guys that you guys want to work with?
I mean, we really run the gauntlet. I mean, we do a lot in fintech, the financial space in general. We do a lot in medical. We do a lot of medical insurance as well. We tend to be within the more highly regulated industries that we do the most. And so a lot of our business is more driven around compliance than it is other things. And the compliance frameworks that require training, like HIPAA, PCI, SOC 2, things like that really tend to drive a lot more of our business and our growth, more so than companies just, hey, we don't want to get hacked. I wish that was the number one reason we sold. I keep, hoping that one day maybe it will be. But the reality is most people buy the product because they have to for compliance or insurance purposes. And so that tends to really lead it. But yeah, we do a lot really across the board. We've got clients in media. We've got entire states on the platform. We've got other government organizations on it. We've got universities and schools and cities across the country. So it's growing and very quickly, actually.
So sounds like you guys are growing, of course, like domestic company. Are you guys thinking about international space like Canada, UK, and then keep on moving outward, or there's so much potential here in the US to grow?
I mean, we're really focused on companies based in North America, but we've got quite a few giant enterprises that are global companies, and we ourselves are a global company with employees on 4 continents. So, it's definitely one of those things where the world's getting smaller thanks to technology, and so we definitely support those. However, we're really not trying to sell into Europe right now. It's more about the North American based companies. But yeah, we're talking to a few companies in Canada right now, as well as the UK. So no, it's certainly an area that we have our eyes on, but I like to keep us sort of laser focused. And I want to truly own this market before I worry about other markets, because each market has its own complexities. And I mean, I was just sort of picking on a competitor that tried to move into the US and just got killed, destroyed, excuse my language, but just got destroyed because of exactly that, we have different compliance requirements, different training requirements. It's very different in Europe than it is in the United States. And so you can't just jump into those, at least not in this industry, without creating a ton of additional new content too.
And one random fact about PhishFirewall is you guys are Huntsville, Alabama based, and your background is NASA, right?
NASA and missile defense. This is a big DoD town. It's we like to say it's the DoD's Silicon Valley, because it truly is the place that they come spend all of their money to solve their most difficult problems. So if they want, research into AI, they're coming to Huntsville. Research into hypersonics, they come to Huntsville. Research into rocketry, they come to Huntsville. So that's part of the, and that's why we're called Rocket City, because that was where our origins were, and it's where Space Camp is to this day. It's where most of the space shuttles have been built, that for NASA, and so it's it's a very interesting town in terms of its history, and just with the federal government. But yeah, that's pretty much everyone works either for some division of the DoD here or NASA. So it's very, very or I guess very, very intelligent. In fact, they say it's the highest number of PhDs per capita of any other city in the U.S.
I have definitely heard that comparison before. And it's interesting that you now have access to that community and draw talent from that community to build your company, which is pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. And the government doesn't pay well, so it's not too hard to steal their good talent.
I believe it.
I joke. It actually is harder than you would think, but no, there's a great talent pool here in Huntsville, and one of the things that I like is that the local government works with the federal government and local schools and the local community to foster that talent and make sure that we have that next generation of person coming in. In fact, they just created a STEM-based boarding school that is primarily focused on cyber, but they've got robotics programs and other things and AI programs there. So just really interesting. It's a state-run boarding school devoted to cyber. I think the first in the country, and right here in Alabama, of all places, considering how low we are on the education thing. It's great that we've got it here in Huntsville. Of course, it is not the normal city in Alabama, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Wow. So a year from now, when I have you come back on the show, come back on the pod, what are some of the comfortable goals for the next year and uncomfortable goals that Josh set for himself and for PhishFirewall?
Well, from a personal perspective, I think a lot of my goals are really aligned with my business goals, because there's only so much time in the world. But no, really, from a business perspective, what I'd like to see is PhishFirewall just continue to grow. I think we can at least double, if not triple, in size within the next 12 months here. Just continue to keep our current growth trajectory. The uncomfortable goal is a new product launch that we're working on. So we're in the process of, we've trained a model, but are in the process of refining that training and making it a little bit better. But what we've done is we've trained a large language model on how to identify the underlying psychological triggers in phishing attacks. So right now, the way that all of these tools protect you from phishing attacks is looking for technical triggers. Well, the bad guys learn what you're looking for and they change it ever so slightly. And then that gets through. And that's why your email phishing spam filters don't catch everything. Well, what we realize is the one thing that never changes is the psychology, these cognitive biases that they're exploiting. And so we trained an AI on the 186 different cognitive biases, and it'll alert anytime those cognitive biases are being used. And yes, a lot of times it alerts on marketing because they use some of those cognitive biases too. But it has a very, very high detection rate on phishing and, of course, spam, because the psychology is always the same. And so our goal is to get that to market by the end of first quarter 2024, if not sooner. So that's one of those more aggressive goals, because when you have a technology company, it's very hard to build a second technology silo right next to it. So that's our aggressive goal to hopefully get, and we'll be excited to bring that technology to market alongside our current AI.
That's amazing. And the next time when we get attacked by Skynet, Josh, I'm going to send you a text message and say, Josh, save us, save the planet.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope Skynet doesn't happen. I won't make that joke. Never mind. But no, I truly, I think AI is going to bring us so much opportunity, but we do have to look at it from the offensive side and understand what what risk it brings to us as well, and alongside of that opportunity. And so it'll be really interesting to sort of see what happens and how AI is, continues to evolve every industry and every technology. And so, I think we finally hit that stage. Everyone was saying, well, AI is going to take over since 1968 or something like that was the first time people started saying that AI was going to take over. And that was because an AI built the world checkers champion, or beat the world checkers champion. And then we train in AI, or we learn about regression training, and we're able to have an AI beat the world chess champion in the 70s. And then we get even better, and it just keeps continuing to happen. But really in 2023 was the first time that everyone said, oh my God, AI is going to take over the world, that it truly started to take over the world. And we're seeing it everywhere. We've got the first humanoid robot coming to market that will use these large language models to help you around your house. I'm excited about that. Although my wife says, no way, we're not letting it in our house. It'll kill us in our sleep. I don't know. We're still arguing about it, but no, I joke, but no, it's really, really amazing some of the stuff that can be done. And I actually thought about joining as like Brad Pitt or somebody, because you can in real time change your voice and change your image using these AI tools. And so it's scary at the same time, because we saw in Hong Kong, I don't know if you heard about it, but this guy in a finance department gets an email from the CEO saying, hey, I'm trying to close this deal. I need you to wire 25 million today. He says, not on my watch. So the CEO replies back and he says, hey, no, thank you. I'm glad you're following the security procedures. I'm on a Zoom with the CFO right now. Can you jump on? So they hand him the Zoom link. He jumps on. CFO, CEO say, hey, we want you to send this wire. I know it's outside of protocol, just do it. So he does it. And then he finds out that that wasn't actually the CEO or the CFO. It was a deep fake of both of them.
I heard that story, but you give me a little bit more context to that story.
Yeah, it's scary. And I think that's part of the reason we have to be talking to our users about AI, because if we don't tell them about it, it's sort of like, the curious kid that's 10, 12 years old. There's certain things that if you don't tell them about it, they're going to find out about it on their own. And you may be, well, actually, I think 15 and 16 is the best age, because driving is a great example. If you don't teach them how to drive, they're going to go drive, and they may end up, wrecking and killing themselves. And I feel like, our people and our staff in the office is the same way. We got to teach them how to use that computer responsibly, how to drive safely, before we give them the keys to the car and let them climb in and potentially wreck the bus, right? And I think so often we let people in, we give them access, and we never train them on how to be secure. And so it's not their fault when they make these mistakes that cause these, multi-million dollar, sometimes $100 million breaches. And I think the one with MGM was $100 million that was estimated cost to them. So it's just, it can get very costly very quickly. And that's, the reason I can't preach enough. We got to be proactive. We got to train our users. We got to make sure that we have, basic security controls. And we have to have more than just our IT team understanding security, because truly the function of IT and cybersecurity are very different. And if you don't have that cybersecurity component to sort of monitor all of these different things and help them do things more securely, you're setting yourself up for failure.
This episode could go on for another hour, 2 hours, but I really appreciate you taking the time today and come on the show. But I'm definitely gonna have you come back at some point. And thank you very much, Josh. And I'm gonna put in the comment section the contact link to follow you. And if you have a link tree yourself, feel free to drop it, send it to me, and then I'll put it in the comment section. So this way that our audience can follow you and follow PhishFirewall in the future.
Perfect. Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I'd love to come back in another year. So if I forget to reach out to you, definitely reach out to me. And I think it'd be great to sort of touch base, and we can see where I'm at with those goals too, huh?
Thank you very much for listening to the show, and have a good one.
You too. Bye.